The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio. Want the real story behind the sound bites and headlines? Let's find the facts. Remember, it's not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. You are not paranoid or confused. You just need to know.
Welcome in, everybody. It is time for Need to Know. Kip Kiefer with you on this start of a brand new week in December. December? Really? Yeah, we're at the end of the year already. It has flown past. The football season has flown past. The regular season wrapping up with a lot of interesting situations on the weekend. You usually don't see the winning team get pepper sprayed at the end of a game, but that's the environment we live in. Of course, you also don't see them having no sportsmanship and running around the field trying to plant a flag into a synthetic turf field, which a big layer of concrete and padding under it. Kind of tough to put a flag in that through that turf, but that's another story. I guess it was kind of a symbolic gesture because you're not going to be able to plant the flag on an artificial turf field. But let's digress to the subject matter of the day. This is Need to Know. We're going to talk about a lot of things that's happening, and it's kind of a fascinating, invigorating, exhilarating situation we're seeing in Washington. We'll see how it plays out, but every week there's more and more drama, and we got to bring that to you today. But we got to start with the major headline overnight. And if you can see me right now, you can just see the absolute shock in my face. I am absolutely stunned and surprised. Imagine who saw this coming. Joe Biden, despite saying over and over in interviews and campaign speeches that he is not in, no one is above the law, and he would not intercede in the Hunter Biden situation. Hunter Biden facing sentencing next week, both in Delaware, his home state, on charges of the not disclosing information to get a permit for a firearm, and also in California, federal violations, of course, of just neglecting to pay his taxes for a number of years, spending those millions on jet setting and sex clubs and companions in the night. I'm trying to be clean here. I know this is a family show, but Hunter Biden pleads guilty to that, facing sentencing. And what a shock. I know everybody's just absolutely stunned today. Joe Biden pardoned Hunter Biden, and not only pardoned him, Joe Biden also cleared the way where the Biden crime family investigation, where the center point of that is Hunter Biden, but it's closely related to Joe Biden and everything that he has and has accumulated. And with all of the hysteria that the only reason Donald Trump wants to serve a second term is to get retribution against his enemies. He is mobilizing the forces to completely torture all of these people that have caused him so much grief. This is why he's in Washington. He doesn't care about the citizens. This is the revenge tour, and the Bidens were target number one. Well, first of all, Trump has said repeatedly that, it's time to move on. He is not going to feed the beast of the same weaponization of our departments of justice and target the Bidens. The Bidens are yesterday's news. The election results revealed that nobody supports this ridiculous swamp creature environment in Washington. Their day has passed. They're panicking. They know it. The American people have paid enough attention, and God bless you all, my American brothers and sisters, for heeding the warning that this whole election, this whole transformation of America, everything that we've been enduring since Barack Obama first stood up on that platform in Chicago the election night 2008, and declared that the stars are bursting forward with the greatest light. The seas are rising. Change has finally come. All of that was about transforming America into some global citizen, new world order, marching compatriot with all of these other people around the world that have that vision, that hate America, hate what America does, hate America's wealth and influence. They want to make America just with all of its resources and riches and might and the capacity to rally to a cause and do things that no other country could possibly do. They wanted to apologize for that, America. They want to apologize that it's a country that has the audacity to give the citizens of this nation individual liberty and ownership in their own government, where they can turn the page. We heard that was a great Democrat slogan for Kamala Harris in the campaign. It's time to turn the page. Well, we'll be turning the page from the third Barack Obama administration, which is what we had, because with a figurehead puppet president, the demented Joe Biden, just following instructions and just staying out of sight most of the time. The only president to probably spend as many days in Delaware during his presidency as he did in Washington. This is what we've been up against. The American people have spoken, and Washington, the swamp, the deep state, which is a term we're going to talk about today on the show, they are freaking out. We told you last week that Donald Trump, in his first administration, kind of blindly walked up to Washington, not really knowing the deal, not having any idea just what he was getting into. And I love it when they call it the Washington bureaucracy. The Washington bureaucracy threw up all kinds of obstacles and traps for Donald Trump in the first administration. And hey, he was just the president. He's going to Washington. Yeah, I'll put this guy in that job. Sure, I'll take your recommendation, put that guy in that job. It's all going to be great. They're all going to rally behind me because I'm the leader. He went up and he put the soldiers of fortune that make up your federal government into key positions that they worked against him from day one. There was never an administration, except for maybe the Jimmy Carter administration back in the 70s, where Jimmy Carter went to Washington with all these idealistic ideas. And of course, the already swamp, which was in place 50 years ago, completely overwhelmed any effort that Carter made to assimilate in Washington. First, he was an outsider. He was foreign to the organism, and he was summarily rejected by the bureaucracy. They wanted him out of there because he had some new ideas. He got influenced heavily, and Donald Trump ran into pretty much the same trap. When he had his first administration in 2016, he listened to a lot of Washington people who paraded around and masqueraded as big supporters of his agenda while recommending people for positions that were going to undermine everything he did. Donald Trump did not have support from his own team. So this year, being elected again, he has learned so much, because now I've told you, and it's ironic that today is just about a day before the anniversary of the phone call I got from one of Trump's best friends after the 2016 election. If you missed last week's show, I got a call from Phil Ruffin, my former boss, who is the owner of three properties, three Las Vegas Strip hotels, property, hotels, office buildings, real estate all over the country and all over the world. Phil is the absolute embodiment of the American dream. Growing up in Wichita, Kansas, started off being a salesperson in a department store pet department. That was his first job. He got into the convenience store business when that was just being invented. He was a guy that was behind adding gas pumps. The idea of self-service gasoline was something that never had been tried before. 24-hour stores. People said he was insane when the chain of stores in Kansas that they had went 24 hours. Nobody's going to shop at 3 o'clock in the morning. Nobody's going to get gas. Well, I think that prediction was wrong. Anyway, he also has been a big friend with Donald Trump for many years. They're both business titans. He sold the Frontier property, the hotel that he bought to get into Las Vegas originally, to the Trump organization, a big part of it. The Trump hotel sits there now on the Strip, and Phil owned all the property adjacent to that too, where the new Resorts World Hotel is. Anyway, they have been close friends for a long time, and in that year 2016, on December the 4th, my phone rang at 6:50 in the morning, which was 4:50 Las Vegas time. It was Mr. Ruffin calling me from his office and asking me some questions about this new kind of gaming that was being invented, that's now all the rage, by the way. And they've got a facility being built in Kansas, just like the one here in Birmingham at the Birmingham Racecourse Casino. But anyway, that conversation was about gaming. And toward the end, this was just 1 month after the presidential election, I said to him, so Phil, I guess your boy Donald's going to Washington. And he said, yeah, it's funny you say that. I was just talking to him yesterday afternoon. He is begging me to come to New York and spend a couple of weeks, because they're going to have all kinds of round-the-clock meetings, vetting candidates for his cabinet, looking at different appointments, and he really wants me to be in on that process. And I said, well, that's awesome. And he said, yeah, well, I'm not going. He said, I've got a business to run here. I got so much going on. And now, and keep in mind, Phil Ruffin at that time was right about 80. This is 8 years later. Phil's pushing the big 90 now, and still active every day, sitting in his office at 4:50 in the morning. But he told Donald Trump, no, I don't have time. I'm not coming there to help you vet candidates for your cabinet. The point of that is, that was not even, we haven't even reached December 4th yet. And here is Donald Trump in his previous administration, just getting started of deciding who he's going to staff all of these departments and bureaus and agencies with, all of these diplomats, all of these department heads, and all of these different entities. You've seen the charts, you've seen the list, I'm sure, this year. I mean, there are hundreds of appointments to be made, including 50 or 60 key ones. And this time, Donald Trump is going to Washington not with an empty deck that he needs to shuffle when he sits down at the resolute desk in the Oval Office. He has a plan. He started before the last vote was counted, when the election was in the bag on November 5th. Already had a strategy, already had a transition team in place. They are going to hit the ground running. On January 20th, when he takes the oath of office, Donald Trump will already have his entire roster of people that he wants in key spots, because it's just like when you become a CEO of anything else. When you're the man, you come in, and if you don't immediately, and I mean immediately, start to surround yourself with your own team, your chance for success is really nil, because people that have been there and been in those kind of jobs, or are recommended new people coming up in the ranks for those positions, they are going to undermine you at every turn, because you're coming in with a whole new philosophy, a whole new attitude about how things need to be done. And that just doesn't fly in Washington. It is an organism. It protects itself. It disguises itself, and it jumps up and bites you when it gets the opportunity. Trump learned, and learned well, in 2016 through 2020 when he was president. He was not going to let that happen again. He has cleaned out all of the dead weight. They're all going to be gone when he takes the oath. He's bringing in his team, his people. I've got personal and management experience of coming in and making those mistakes in some of my first management jobs. And you learn that you better surround yourself with people that you know are on board with your philosophy and you can trust and work with. I think it's hilarious that the press is of course parroting the big concern with the bureaucracy in Washington, that Trump is picking a bunch of unqualified people and they don't. This is going to be a disaster. He's tearing down the federal government. This is the end of the world. There's panic in the streets with all of these people that collect a huge check, compliments of you and me and everybody who works and has money taken out of their checks and pays their taxes every year. All of these people, and a tremendous amount of them, are still not coming to work every day because it's the 2020 work at home attitude. Why commute into Washington, D.C. and sit in a drab big federal building all day when you can stay in your pajama pants and basically do nothing, which is what you're going to do in your office in Washington, because there's so much bloating, so many people on top of people. There's really not enough to do for all of these bureaucrats that make up the federal government, but all of them are getting the big sweet dollar. If you drive around Washington, D.C. or Arlington, Virginia, you are absolutely amazed to see the opulent gated communities, these multi-million-dollar houses, these gigantic, ultra-modern, unbelievable high-rise condominiums and apartments all through Northern Virginia. This is the biggest boom place in the country. I've been saying it for years. I was shocked, having been born in Washington, the grandson of a longtime government bureaucrat. My grandmother worked for the Department of Commerce for 36 years and retired and lived another 40 years and collected a government check every month in her, quote, retirement. But with all the government benefits on top of your regular USA benefits, you live a pretty lucrative lifestyle, even if you don't work for 40 years. But all that set aside, it's the greatest gig in the world to get wedged into some kind of spot in one of these agencies or bureaus or departments that the founding fathers never, ever conceived would take place. And these people are just in full out panic mode. The State Department has counselors who are meeting with employees. And when I say counselors, basically psychiatrists, psychologists, trying to lessen their anxiety because they see that Donald Trump is going to come in, and they're just bending over backwards trying to think of some way, any way to derail this express, but they really kind of see the writing on the wall. And it's all out panic mode in the nation's capital right now because Trump is going to make sweeping changes. That's what people voted for overwhelmingly. Enough of the big deep state government. It's time for it to go back to where it was originally intended, of the people, by the people, for the people. You and I are the government, not these bureaucrats collecting ridiculous amounts of money and running their phony baloney departments that really just get in the way of the country being what it's intended to be, which is a bastion for free enterprise and capitalism and the opportunity to live the American dream, where you can go as far as your hard work and determination and grit and intellect will take you. These people don't share that vision. These people believe they're elite. So many of these people are Ivy League educated. They've come from silver spoon backgrounds, and yet they don't embrace the way that their families have amassed fortunes. They embrace being in complete power and control of everything. And you know what that equates to? Unbelievable fortune and wealth for these individuals. If you're in control and you run the show and you make the policies, you cash in because every special interest is channeling money your way. Your own departments get multi-gazillion dollar budgets from the controlling factors in Congress, because don't fool yourself. Yes, the Republicans have a majority, but it's going to be hard for some of these guys that have assimilated into the Washington lifestyle to completely abandon the same deep state that has been putting money by the bukus in their pocket for all of these years. And you have a lot of people up there. I don't care what your party label. I've been preaching this on this show since day one. This is not Republican, Democrat. This is Washington, D.C., the swamp, the deep state against the rest of America. They are their own organism. That's why you see all these investigations and all these millions of dollars spent to try and kind of pull the wool over your eyes and my eyes of saying, look, what government is in action. We're investigating this. We're going to have hearings. We're going to do this. Whatever happens and all that, all the hours people actually tune in and watch these hearings where it's just a giant show for people on each side of the aisle to have their 5 minutes and bluster and showcase how concerned they are for the American people and their constituents. And the person in the hot seat babbles and sweats for about a couple hours, and then everybody goes their separate ways, and everything just continues as it did before. When's the last time a congressional hearing or an investigation with a giant staff of lawyers, all of this bureaucratic nightmare, when's the last time that actually had any results and anything happen? The organism, at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with party or ideology. The organism that's Washington will always just make a big fuss about everything to completely fool the American people into believing that they're actually committed to making your life better. And when the real purpose is just keeping everything status quo, because why would you tinker with the most successful growth enterprise, which brings in more money than anything in the history of the world, running the federal government? The founding fathers, 250 years ago, how brilliant were those guys? They knew this was the danger in having this kind of representative republic, that eventually the government would become so corrupt that they would be for the government and for their own opportunities. And you, well, you don't mean anything. Let them eat cake. Marie Antoinette said that triggered the French Revolution. I eat a lot of cake, but the fact of the matter is, they just want to keep the American people thinking that they are actually working for them. But the real truth, folks, is it's just not true. This organism works for itself. It exists to sustain itself. And why not? Because the flow of money coming from private partnerships, coming from foreign entities, coming from ideological, sick wackos like George Soros, and now his son, who's looks like he's taken over because Soros is turning 90 years old. These people have a different agenda. To have this great globalist situation, this new world order, get back to the almost monarchical approach that we had in the early parts of human organized civilization. They want to get back to elites ruling, because the elites, a lot of them are self-ordained. We're smarter than you. We know more than you. We need to be in control and in power and let you eat cake. Basically tell you what you can drive, tell you where you can live, tell you what kind of appliances you can have in your house, tell you eventually what kind of jobs you can do, where you can go, if anywhere. Basically just run every aspect of your life from cradle to grave, because they know better. And the American people finally said, no, enough of this. We've got to stop it. You've got a really interesting example, and we've talked about Ramaswamy and Elon Musk running the government efficiency or committee, uh, Doge, which is hilarious because, of course, that's a type of Bitcoin that Elon Musk basically controls the value of. But the fact that it's Doge is kind of hilarious, and I'm sure it's a snickering joke for Elon Musk. But Musk and Ramaswamy are two of the most successful business guys, and understand the American dream better than anyone. Elon Musk is a South African born naturalized citizen of the country. I heard some stupid commentator the other day say, well, obviously Elon Musk has his eye on becoming president. Well, that's going to be a tough chore because Elon Musk was born in South Africa. He's not eligible to become president. That's constitutional. That's not going anywhere. Of course, if he was a Democrat, they would find a way to get around that because the Constitution to them, even though it's the lifeblood and the backbone of this country, is just an inconvenient obstacle because they just pick and choose the parts of the Constitution that they want to utilize or ignore whatever serves their purpose better. All of this, oh, this is a threat to democracy. These people coming in here, this is the ultimate tactic that they use, projecting their own behavior and their own methodology on the people that threaten their opportunity to do that. They project it right back. Right now, you've got the latest one blowing up. And as usual, I've gone way off pace here. So let me finish up what we started with before I get into that. Hunter Biden being pardoned, it's par for the course. The Biden crime family has been lying and stealing and swindling for their entire career. It started with Joe Biden's brothers when he got in the Senate. So they started as a mom and pop kind of organization, probably getting some smaller businesses and different people to pony up money to support Joe Biden and themselves. They were selling influence and contact with Joe Biden on a small level. And then as they got bigger and bigger, as Biden rose in prominence in terms of powerful committee chairmanships in the Senate, and this is a guy that really has the intellect of a turnip. People on the inside in Washington know who Joe Biden is. He is not in his prime, whenever that was. Not a very smart guy. He's never had a job. He's been a professional politician his entire life. Another thing that the founding fathers railed against. And when Hunter Biden came along, who was a devious, cheating, scheming little weasel, he was the perfect fit when the Biden brothers had gotten fat and happy to deploy Hunter all over the world to shake down world leaders. They globalized their enterprises, and Hunter Biden has been the linchpin of all of that for years. Joe Biden paid cash for a $3.5 million beachfront mansion in Delaware a few years ago when he already owned another mansion in Delaware. And he bought this one paying cash. This is a guy who's worked as a bureaucrat for $175,000 a year, basically. I think the Senate salary is up to like 190 now, maybe right around 200. But even if you're making 200,000 a year, you don't have $3 million in cash to fork over for a mansion. But this happens every day with our politicians. Nobody asks questions. Nobody says, how can that be? Nobody says Harry Reid was bankrupt when he got to the U.S. Senate. He served 5 terms there. For 30 years, maybe 6. He was up there for 36 years. And when he came out of the Senate, he had gone from being bankrupt to being estimated worth of about $45 million. How does that happen? Why does that not outrage American citizens? Why is that just a standard operating procedure? Questions you need to ask. So, bottom line is they're freaking out. They're going to come tear up the government. They're going to tear it down. Damn right they're going to tear it down. That's what needs to happen. All of this bloated, just ridiculous. It's the greatest business on earth. They take in more money than any enterprise in the history of the world, and yet they manage to exceed that amount of just unfathomable wealth. and spend more than that. So they just print more money that's not worth anything, which is why everything costs so much. It's why whatever you have in your pocket right now is less value than what was before, because there's new money in circulation that devalues anything that was previously there. It's really basic economics, folks. And thank God we're going to see an opportunity to make sweeping changes. Trump is going in there with his own team. He's not listening to people like Fat Chris Christie, the New Jersey governor, who was his transition team. This is unbelievable. Chris Christie, who is now the biggest Trump critic on earth. I wonder why, since Trump finally fired his fat ass. Chris Christie really had Trump's ear because he had presented himself in that first administration as a reformer himself. This is a guy who allegedly was a Republican governor of New Jersey, but he doesn't have any Republican proclivities. He is a Democrat in Republican sheep's clothing. And he actually had Trump's ear when James Comey was propagating the fake Russia investigation, trying to topple Trump's presidency in the early days. Chris Christie went to him and said, you need to fire Comey, but I've got a great guy for you to look at, Christopher Wray. And Christopher Wray is the current FBI director because Trump hired him on the recommendation of Chris Christie, but Trump just did not do his homework in the first term, because if he looked closely, the only qualifications that lawyer Christopher Wray had was working in the Department of Justice under, get ready for it, FBI Director Robert Mueller, who became a prominent person who led the Trump Russiagate investigation that yielded nothing, no wrongdoing, but cost you and me $55 million to investigate him for a year and a half. And the number two in command in that chain, James Comey himself. So you need to fire James Comey and replace him with his protege, Christopher Wray. And Trump took the bait and did it. Now Trump is bringing Kash Patel to the table to take over the FBI, and they are freaking out. You can't have Kash Patel. This guy believes there's a deep state and there's no such thing. Well, I just told you exactly what the deep state is. The deep state, he's going to have fierce opposition from the bureaucracy in Washington. Ladies and gentlemen, the bureaucracy is the deep state. They're one in the same. The people writing all of these restrictive regulations, coming up with all these policies. I didn't vote for them. You didn't vote for them. They're the bureaucrats in Washington. They're the ones who are collecting a check for doing basically nothing but ruining your lives and your futures of your children's lives. But these people, this is the bureaucracy that's going to be so fiercely opposed to all Trump's reforms. Well, of course they are going to be fiercely opposed, because they're going to be out of business, and out of getting a check for doing nothing but causing trouble and using their elitist superiority complex to make life in America not what it was intended to be. So God bless all of you. Thank you so much for putting us back on course. And now, Donald Trump, the expectations are in your court. Go up there and do what the will of the people has mandated. Tear it down. Tear it down. Run these people off. I don't like the idea anytime of somebody losing their livelihood, but these people have been dominating the trough for a long time. Let them get a real job. Let them stop gravy training off you and me and this bloated federal government where they contract out half the work anyway. It's time to get it cleaned up. The federal government doesn't need to be a multi-trillion-dollar $35 trillion in debt entity. It needs to stop right now with real reform and real cleaning of house, not just rhetoric, but reality. Drain the swamp, not a campaign promise this time, not just a campaign slogan. This time, the mandate from the American people is go there, Donald Trump, and drain this freaking swamp. It's time to get back to business in America with you and me, the rightful owners of this government, having the freedom to make choices for ourselves and our families, and getting all of these Ivy League elitist bureaucrats the hell out of Washington. I'm Kip Kiefer. That's what you need to know. Talk to you next week.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.